I pressed record at the right time. Oh, nah. What's that? Oh, nah. Magic.
Legend material.
Transfer tracker. I mean, tens of people around the country and world, firstly thinking, where's the bulldog? And secondly, what has just happened?
Where is that bulldog, honestly?
Honestly, I want to know. If anyone out there can comment where that bulldog is, more than happy to talk around it next week. Hello, Chelsea fans, and welcome back to ChelsChat. I'm Moose, and as always, I'm joined by JB. Today, we're going to discuss our defeat to West Ham. A bit of a disappointment on that one. Our victory at Watford, which made a massive improvement. We'll go into a bit more detail a bit later there. We'll discuss our defensive issues, which we've gone on a few times on the podcast about, but I think we need to address this head on because it's starts to become a bit of a problem now. And take a look into our upcoming games with Palace and Sheffield United. But first, please make sure to like and subscribe and hit the bell notification to make sure you never miss a video. If you enjoy the content, smash the like button and drop us a comment. Give us your thoughts and opinions on the topics we discuss. So let's get on to it. West Ham. JB.
Oh.
How was that absolute dross?
It was awesome, wasn't it?
I don't know whether it was the pressure going into the game. Leicester had lost. We had the perfect opportunity of coming into third position and running away from Man United rather than now having to catch up and chase sort of fourth spot. We're now in a competition. It's not sort of running away with third and leaving the Leicesters and the Uniteds below. We had an opportunity to go sort of 2-3 points ahead of them. And I mean, the lads just didn't turn up.
No, I think watching the previous performances, specifically Leicester, really, you kind of felt a performance like that coming. I mean, I even said, last week we've won the first 3 games, but I'm still feeling negative about how we might go into these games. And it's just something about West Ham. They love to beat us when they're losing to everyone else, especially the teams around us. So I could just feel it coming. And it was just one of those days, wasn't it? Like, even, we scored 2 goals and we still didn't win the game. That says everything you need to know about our defensive problems.
I mean, let's start where it really kicked off. I mean, VAR, sort of, I don't know, we were texting as the game was going on, and it felt like, I mean, massive injustice on them. And that's as the Chelsea fans saying that they should have had a goal in the first couple of minutes, and we were saved. And we were talking on the game going, do you know what? It feels like one of those games that an injustice happens, but we'll go on and sort of build confidence because of it. Did we?
I think we were very lucky to get away with that one. I mean, it was poor defending. I mean, the whole Azpilicueta thing, like sticking his butt into the attackers and just being weird in general. I mean, he should never be marking Souček in the first place. He's their tallest player. Azpilicueta, yeah, he's a good defender, but he's not a big bloke. So that was a bad decision in the first place. Yeah. Set pieces in general, I mean, they've been our downfall. Full stop. It's been bad. So we'll go into the defensive stuff later, but I mean, in terms of set pieces, the whole zonal marking thing clearly doesn't work for the players that we've got. You've got Liverpool who do it very well, and Van Dijk is the guy who is there to get the ball. He's not got a position. It's just, right, you're the one that's going to go and win the ball in the air, and he does it. Yeah. So the zonal marking works. But unless we play Zuma, that's never going to work. So
I think it's case in point of where I feel Lampard is playing the sort of the tactical, the ethos he wants to play with not the players to do it. He hasn't got the players at his disposal at the moment to achieve that sort of defending. but still decides to sort of push ahead with it. And that's not necessarily a negative against him. I just feel like if we haven't got the players, let's play to how we can defend rather than how we would like to defend. And let's look at, sort of, as we say, we're going to mention it a bit later, but for me, let's just get the simple stuff right, which we just aren't doing at the moment. The reason that we seem to be constantly switching players at the back is we haven't found a perfect back four in the players we've got. I think, for me, if we look at the first goal, what were your thoughts? I mean,
it was just a mess, wasn't it? I mean, we didn't learn from the first one. Kepa comes running out to God knows where. I don't know what he was trying to do. He's never been strong at commanding the box from corners, from wide free kicks, in no man's land. And obviously, again, we're not picking up Souček at that back post, and they managed to stick it away in the end. And it was just, you could see it coming. I mean, we got away with the first one. We got a penalty, went 1-0 up. That should have been, we should have then looked to push on. But instead, our defensive issues are now causing us another problem. But I think that starts with Kepa in that situation. I think he should have done a hell of a lot better for that.
Yeah, and for me, just no one seems to take. You've got no commanding player in the back four. Like no one. I mean, you've got Dave, an absolutely amazing captain. Don't get me wrong, but he's not that commanding player. I think you mentioned Van Dijk a minute ago. He's not that player that does it, and the keeper isn't commanding it. None of the back four are. So,
I mean, look at the third goal, for example. Like Alonso, what on earth was that? I think he's still trying to get back from that box now. That's how bad it was. He was just, if you're a fullback, he's not playing as a wing back in a back four. He's playing as a fullback, which means you have to, if you're going to get up there, you need to get back. Yeah, we're going for a win, but we don't want to lose the game. So run back, track your man, and don't let him get that far ahead of you. Rudiger, I mean, the guy's left-footed, so what do? You let him onto his right foot. Don't let him into his left foot and bury it. It was just too easy, and frustrating.
The whole game was a bit of a frustration because I don't know. I mean, let's talk around some of the positives. Willian had an absolutely amazing game, and I think it's going to be consistent across both games we cover this weekend. He had he's just one of those players. Our attacking is just looking so much better than our defence at the moment. Defensively, all of those goals were mistakes rather than class from West Ham. A team that are struggling at the bottom, a team that had sort of a 2-2 draw with Newcastle at the weekend. They shouldn't have deserved the win, but they played us off the park at sort of. But some great performances, actually. I think we started sort of a strong forward attacking. Tammy started still not looking on the ball, to be honest.
Do you know what, with Tammy, I think he's trying too hard. I think he sees that Giroud's been started. He sees that Werner's coming in. He sees that Havertz might come in. And I think he's just trying too hard. He looked a little bit like Bambi on ice, like he was making loads of runs and he was trying to do good stuff, but he kept it just wasn't working for him. He was just making the wrong decisions every time, and it was just frustrating. I think it needs to be Giroud going forward, to be honest.
I think for the remainder of the season, definitely. So some surprising performances. I thought Barkley, over the last couple of games, has been on fire. I credit where credit's due. I mean, we still haven't got to the bottom of why Jorginho's not starting, whether it's an injury, a lack of fitness, or he's off in the summer. But actually, I think performances Barkley are probably keeping him out, in all honesty.
I think if we're looking now at the Watford game as an example, the perfect opportunity to bring Jorginho on when Kante went off injured. And he still picked Gilmore. I mean, Gilmore obviously fantastic talent. Lampard likes to bring through the youth, yeah, but Jorginho has not played a single minute, and there's got to be something in that. Unless he's like severely unfit, then it's got to be a case of he's moving on. And I genuinely think it's got to be that the case. I think his agent's been talking quite a lot about, he's available. He maybe will go to Juventus and stuff. And I wouldn't be surprised if Lampard's, turned around to him like, if you want to leave, then I'm not going to play you. You can go to Juventus if you want. We have players that can come in and fill your position. That's not a problem. But you're not going to play for the rest of the season. And I wouldn't be surprised if that's how it's gone down.
I mean, the rumour mill is he's on the Moose lockdown diet, which probably means he's not starting, because the lack of fitness that's happening here is unbelievable.
Probably can't get off the bench when he's been asked to.
I'm like Ronaldo in the later years.
I know who you mean.
So the Watford game. Now that was a breath of fresh air, to be honest. I mean, let's start by sort of stating we weren't challenged. Watford seem a little bit defeated.
On the first minute, I think, weren't they? It was they. I don't know if we looked good or they were just awful. I think it was a mixture of the two, to be honest. I mean, we played well, but they didn't really threaten us until like the 85th minute.
I think they had no shots on target until, as you say, 85th minute. We had 70% possession. And from my perspective, we're going to touch on some of the defensive errors. The issue is we couldn't really point out those defensive errors in the Watford game because we weren't challenged. Interesting pairing in Christian and Zuma. May I just add, great shout by Jamie on calling the lineup. Obviously, got a tap in for sort of Lampard or.
I gave him a call and just said, "Frank, mate, how are you feeling about the game? What do you think about the starting 11?" And he gave me a little nudge. So
he didn't give you a nudge. You named it for him.
I kind of. He heard how good I was at Football Manager and was like, "Jamie, can you just tell me what you would do in this situation?"
I know you've taken MK Dons to heights that no one's ever seen, but for me, absolutely amazing game. It was one of those ones where, if as a Chelsea fan, I could have struggled through 90 minutes at West Ham, that was enjoyable to watch. Pulisic just on fire. He ran Watford.
I think Lampard got the team selection bang on. Not because I told him to, but just he just did. I think that for me, the best thing about the way that he's working this team at the moment is the way that Mount and Barkley are performing. I think that's very pivotal to Kante. So obviously, when you've got Kante playing that holding position, because he's like having two people on the pitch, it means that you can have two kind of number 8s in Mount and Barkley, and the extra two players are going to help you break down that low block that you're getting from these teams that are just coming there to defend. And Jorginho can't really do it in the same way that Kante does. He's not as defensive minded, so you don't have that kind of extra protection for the defence. And I think Gilmore's still a little bit weak, and still a bit youthful to do that job. So it's I think Kante has been pivotal to that, and he's allowed Mount and Barkley to come through and have such strong performances in the last game.
Mount was just brilliant. I mean, the way in which he was just controlling the ball, sort of controlling the tempo of the game. Same from Barkley. The two were just owning the whole of the midfield. And
I've been really impressed with Barkley. I know a lot of people are not massive fans of his, but as I think I said this last week, he does a lot. He offers a lot. It's just sometimes that last decision is not the right one. But I think that can be worked on, especially under Frank Lampard, who was one of the best in that position.
Yeah,
he's in the best place to learn, and he's in the best place to improve. And I would be happy for Barkley to stay. I think he's actually, this season has probably been his best season for us. He had a fairly good season last year, but I think he's really improved this year. And I'd keep him in the side at the moment, definitely.
And let's go to the main man at the moment. I mean, Pulisic, he is running sort of defensive right. I mean, his footwork, his control, his pace. I mean, that's for me is something that's really doing sort of well for us at the moment, and equally Willian. We'll touch on the transfer tracker in a couple of minutes, but for me, he's one of those players that now I'm like, do you know what? I think that's earning a contract. He scored how many goals sort of over the last couple of games?
I think he's one of those players that's benefiting from Pulisic playing so well, because not only, two of his goals have been because Pulisic has won penalties, but Pulisic is doing a lot of the running. He's almost doing that Eden Hazard role. I'm not going to compare the two because that's impossible, but he's getting his head down and he's running. We far too often you'll see Chelsea pass, trying to pass their way through, but you get the ball to him and he's gonna be that guy who's just gonna get his head down and try and run between them. And it's just a change of pace, it's a change of direction, it's a change of attitude.
Yeah.
So the team that are defending against us are expecting us to try and pass around them. But you give the ball to Pulisic, he's going to do something different, and then they're kind of not prepared for that. So it's just giving us a different dimension, which is really, really working for us. And it's showing in his performances because of how many chances he's creating for us.
And from my perspective, we mentioned it already, but Giroud had a great game again. I think it's just solidifying why he'll start for the remainder of the season. And don't get me wrong, there's a place for Tammy in the squad. I just think at the moment he's struggling. The news is getting to him. He's had a number of seasons where he's been out on loan and he's not done so well. I mean, the Swanseas, the Aston Villa, he had a great sort of season. He led that into this season, had the dip in sort of the COVID sort of response, and then obviously the news that we're bringing other strikers, I think it's just hit him hard.
Yeah.
But I'll back him to sort of bounce back. I just think for the sake of our getting top 4 spot, we're going to have to back Giroud. And Tammy's going to. Yeah. And one last player, I think, sort of for me, that was showing sort of real sort of resolve on doing well, considering that lack of form going back from COVID. Reece James had a great game. For me, the balls he was putting into the box, his defensive stance, he just didn't seem a different player than he has been over the last couple of games.
Mm.
And I think it is just some of those youth players coming back. They're struggling with that, sort of not playing week in, week out, and then sort of trying to sort of pick up their form again. It's more difficult to sort of switch on and off.
I think he definitely improved in that Watford game. As we said, we weren't tested very much in that game, but he looked physically stronger than he did in the last few games he played in, and his crossing at the beginning of the game wasn't great, but slowly throughout the game it was getting better. So hopefully he can carry that forward, because to be honest, that back 4 needs to be our back 4 going forward, because the fact that the 2 games that we've got clean sheets since we've come back have been the 2 games where we've had Christiansen and Zuma playing should tell you everything you need to know. One of those games being against Leicester. So yes, Watford didn't test us very much, but we also were playing against a very good Leicester City side with that back 4, and they didn't concede either. So we really, I think that has to be our back 4 combination.
Yeah. So on the topic of this, our defending has been questionable all season. I think, I couldn't name a great back 4 for us. To your point there, I think that is our back 4 in the Watford game that played well. Zuma is probably, I think, sort of, he's our only dominant physical defender, and we've been used to that sort of play for a number of years. You look at sort of the Terrys that we've had for sort of a mainstay for 15 sort of years, and we just had that consistency. Zuma's got that physicality to him. Not necessarily the footballing brain that Terry brings, but the physicality. And I think we need that. There's a real lack of that at the moment in the back 4.
What do you, in your opinion, do you think that is it a cause or effect of Lampard's changing them all the time? Do you think that's causing a problem in terms of none of them are getting this kind of partnership together? It's constantly changing. So is that because of the bad form, or is that causing worse bad form?
it's a good point. I think potentially is a bit of both. I think on paper, it's very difficult to pick a good back four with what he's got at his disposal. So on paper, you would say Alonso left back, maybe Dave right back, and then two of the centre backs. Rudiger would be probably your best one on paper. In reality, they're just not really fulfilling what you'd expect from them, and so he's having to mix it around because we're having performances like West Ham. We're having performances where we're letting goals go through from set pieces. So I don't blame Lampard for that. I think it is a causal effect, and we do sort of need to go and pick a back four that's going to work until the end of the season and then work on it until next season. But it's because you've got people on paper who should be our dominant defender just not performing.
I think that the biggest problem we have is the fact that as I think I said again, I think I said this last week, but you've got four very good centre backs. Like there's nothing wrong with any of them. They're all good, except for maybe Rudiger at the moment. It's been absolutely awful, but they're all in their own right good defenders. But none of them are, that commanding leader. The communication. None of them are, very vocal on the pitch. And that's, even David Luiz had that. That was something that he brought to the table. But we have.
Maybe it's not desperation like Arsenal.
I wouldn't want him back, giving away 6 penalties in a season. But I think just we need that guy who would come in and be able to give us that leadership, that communication at the back, and just kind of grab that back four by the scruff of the neck and get them in line when they're having a bad game.
Exactly that. And I think sort of Rudiger has got the makings of that, but he needs that dominant defender. I think we've already said it. Someone like a Terry in the back four that just tells him, like, get your head together, you're there, I'm here, I'm keeping this. There's no one owning that. And Dave, as good as a defender as he is, just can't control that back foot. He's up and down the pitch. You need a centre-back controlling where people are, what's people doing, who should be marking who. And there isn't that. And my worry is we look into the transfer options we're talking around, there's not that maturity that we're looking towards. We are looking towards more youth. But as a squad, in the top flight, Burnley are the only squad that have conceded more goals than Chelsea this term. Now, for a club that are used to having sort of Stamford Bridge as that sort of fortress, no one scores against us. We were sort of one of the best defensive runs for many years. And don't get me wrong, let's put this into perspective. We were not expecting the season we've had to date, but we're now being critical of the fact that we are used to a great defence, and we haven't got that at the moment. We've got some good talent, but not a talent that's like orchestrated across the back. And that really leads us on to some of the transfers. I'm going to do a bit of an intro. I've been preparing this all week. Transfer Tracker! It's come from a deep part of my body. So, after that, I mean, what I can only put as mysticism of the Transfer Tracker that's now going to become a weekly segment. Who are you bringing in? I mean, there's a lot of talk. I'm not necessarily happy with the talk, but there's a lot of talk of who we could be bringing in to come and fix our defensive woes.
Okay, so I'll name what I've heard. I'll name the ones that I've heard because I know we discussed this briefly before, but I've actually had a couple more on top of that as well. So you've got Declan Rice is the one we've heard more recently, which actually the more I thought about it, the more the idea's actually grown on me. I think mainly because he would be the perfect candidate to be cover for Kante in that holding midfield position to allow us to have those two number 8s playing. As a centre back, he brings that leadership, but I think that's about it. We need a big guy. You need Zuma with the John Terry personality is kind of what we're looking for, and I don't think Declan Rice will bring that physicality, which is the downside.
the issue is that we mentioned this last week. We're bringing in a player to play out of position.
But the thing is, he was, when he was in Chelsea's academy, he was a centre back. That was his position.
Don't get me wrong, there are some great stories of this happening very well. Vincent Kompany, is a great example of this, where he was brought in as a centre mid, placed into centre back, and was probably one of the best Premier League centre backs for a number of years.
Yeah.
But for me, he's not. He's a player that, if we bought, he's not going to come cheap to start with. Secondly, especially if they don't go down, they're not going to sell him to us of all clubs. But he's not going to be. He's one of those players that could be like a John Stones. He's going to take a season or two to sort of give that true testament of whether he's going to be good or not. Mm-hmm. And he's not necessarily going to hit the ground running, which is what we need. Yeah. We need that player who's going to step into the centre back and just start telling Zuma, Rudiger, whoever it is who's partnered with them, just to sort of get into position, do the basics right. And I don't think he's going to do that. I don't think a player of his age and necessarily his stature is going to come in and own our defence, which is where I really worry around that. A few others, I mean, the realistic one for me, and he's not going to come cheap, is the Napoli.
Koulibaly.
For me, he is that player. You spend 90 million and he's going to walk into that defence and start to tell people where they're going wrong. And you're going to get probably expected results off that for the money that he's going to be bringing in.
It's difficult because I can't imagine that we're going to bring in the left back that we want, Havertz, and then go and spend another 90 million on the centre half when we do have 4 good centre halves. I think the problem is I don't think Lampard sees centre back as a big issue that we have. I think he feels that he can work with what we've got because they're young, really. I mean, like Rudiger is not old. He's the more experienced, but he's not old. And then the other 3 are still young, and I think Lampard feels that he can mould them into what he wants. I worry that anyone else believes in that is a different story, but I don't see him prioritising that. I think he would rather get Chilwell and Havertz, and then if there's some money left over in the bank for a centre half, then he'll go out and try and secure someone. But I can't imagine that would have the funds left to go and get someone like Koulibaly, especially with City sniffing around him as well.
Yeah, and I mean, to be honest, the player that I think is a Lampard signing, and for me, all the stars start to align when I think around it, is Ake. So for me, we've got the buyback clause to start with. Secondly, he plays centre-back, and I know he's played for Bournemouth and they've been dire the second half of this season. But he is that one sort of gem for that club. He's done very well. He's left us and actually sort of really turned himself into a mature centre-back. But he's that Lampard mould of being able to play left-back or centre-back. So he's not just a one-position player. He can play in those multiple.
I think the one issue you have with Ake is his size. He's 6 foot, I think, which, for a centre-half is not that tall. He's fairly physical. He's kind of like a Tomori, another Tomori. I mean, Tomori's physical enough. He doesn't get bullied too much, but he is not that big Zuma type player. So I think Zuma can, if he just works on his communication a bit better, he could be that commanding defender we need. But it just might take a bit too much work in the time frame that we really want.
Yeah. And you'd expect it for a player of his age to have now matured. The other one in the hat is, and I'm going to really try and pronounce his name correctly here, Upamecano.
Do you want me to fill that blank?
I mean, to be honest, I don't think you need to, because I think I've got that spot on. But yeah,
Upamecano.
That's what I said.
Upamecano.
This is a man that I think potentially he's sort of a halfway house between the two. I think he could really sort of step in. He's not going to come for the extortionate amount for Koulibaly. He's probably a bit more expensive than Nathan Ake, but probably brings a little bit of both of them. And comes with sort of the benefit of knowing Timo Werner very well. Probably playing quite well into that side. There are a lot of other clubs looking in, is the honest piece. But I think it does come back to that point of whether we think Lampard's going to prioritise a centre-back. And it's interesting because there have been sort of some moves between whether Chilwell will be affordable. Is he becoming too expensive now?
Oh yeah, I mean, if they're still asking for 60 million plus, then there's just no need. I mean, he's not a 60 million player. He's a good left back, but he's not a great left back. He's not like one of these. I must have him. I look at him play and I think, yeah, he's decent, but I don't look at him and think, wow, he's amazing. And if you can fill that gap with a Tagliafico for 20 million or Tellez is another one, which would be maybe 30 million. Why are you going out spending? Yeah, Digne is the most recent one, which actually I think he's a very good shout. I think he would be a good option. I mean, he's got that connection with Zuma from the national team. I mean, I don't specifically know if they're good friends or not, but that it's something that can you can look at and think, yeah, maybe that communication might start to come through when you've got a fellow countryman next to you. So, and then obviously Kante will be just ahead of him, so that might start to bring out that kind of communication side of Zuma. Not just that, but Digne is a very good wing back in general. I think he can play as a fullback or a wing back. His crossing of the ball is better than Alonso's, but that's not difficult. And defensively, he's quite sound as well. And I don't think he would be that expensive, although Everton are quite renowned, like Leicester, for driving a hard bargain for a player. So it depends how much money. I think if it's like 30 million or something, then yeah, that's probably a better option because he's also young.
If you're a betting man, what positions do you reckon will fill by the end of
left back? 100%. There's no way we're not going to sign another left back. If we don't, then it'll be an absolute travesty. Just anyone other than Alonso and Emerson.
I'll play Rudiger out of position.
I do think Havertz will happen. I do.
Especially considering the results have gone. He just doesn't seem happy there anymore. I think they haven't got Champions League. They lost to Bayern in the German Cup, which they didn't have a great game. Goalkeeping error added to the misery, but he did score. But just didn't look that happy, if I'm going to be honest, whilst playing.
Yeah, I think from what I've been reading, we were waiting until after that cup final. But the other thing that we are going to kind of have to wait on, I think, is whether we get top four, because I mean, he's not going to leave a Europa League team to go and play for another Europa League team. He wants to be playing in the Champions League, and I think that's going to be quite important. That would probably bring down the wages we'd have to pay him, because I think if we didn't get Champions League, we'd probably have to up what we're paying him weekly for him to actually think about coming. So I think that'll be quite important. So it might even get delayed a bit further. But Bayern have pulled out of the race pretty much now because they've just bought Sane, so they can't really afford to go out and pay that kind of money for Havertz this year. They want him to wait another year at Leverkusen, but it doesn't seem like he's willing to do that. It sounds a lot like...
The arrogance of Bayern. We want you to... I hate it.
Wait for us. But then you when players do that, so many times it doesn't work out. Like, look at Leon Bailey, another Leverkusen player. He's been waiting and waiting and waiting, trying to get the right move, because he's basically got loads of representatives behind him who are all demanding different things for them personally on top of the deal. And he's still there, and he's hardly playing now. He's took a big back step in his career because he waited too long. I don't think Havertz will do the same thing. And Real Madrid are the other team, but again, they're kind of hesitant on making the deal at the moment. They want to wait another year to see what will come of it. So I think we're the front runners for it. I think we will probably be the ones to do it, but we just have to make top four, in my opinion. I think if we finish top four, Havertz will be a Chelsea player, in my opinion.
And then, I suppose, I mean, to be honest, there are, I think sort of what we've seen for the last couple of games is there are gaps that we need to fill. And I think the transfer tracker, as much as sort of my new intro is going to cause a lot of people to ask for this every week, but it's going to be much more interesting to go and watch going forward, simply because there are definitive gaps that we need. And we knew that, but now we've got the ability to buy, the ability to go and do this. It means even more.
And we're in a lot stronger of a position than most teams, which means that the competition for players is not going to be as high. You know, you're still going to have Man United, Man City, probably Barcelona, Real Madrid, Bayern Munich in some cases, PSG. They're probably the ones that are going to be fighting us for players. You look back over the last few years, we've probably been fighting, you know, Arsenal and Spurs, and even on occasion Everton for a player. It shows that we actually have benefited from not only COVID, but from our transfer ban, because we've been able to save up that money and actually bring through the youth. And now we only need to go and fill in a few gaps, whereas before we probably needed a full squad overhaul. So it's actually benefited us quite a lot in the end, which, you know, thank you, UEFA. Thank you, FIFA.
We get a quote on that, please. So, obviously, the season's not over. As much as we need to go and fill gaps, there is a number of games for us still to go and finish, and 2 coming up next week. So we've got the Palace game. Palace have had a mixture of results over the last couple of weeks. Lost to Leicester at the weekend.
They were awful. I watched that game. They were really bad.
Really bad. Which doesn't spell anything for me. I think a team that's had
make a difference.
a bad game means they'll probably turn up for Chelsea. And I think for me, I think sort of the important point for this is we've got another opportunity to go third. Leicester play Arsenal. Arsenal looked good at the weekend. 2-0 win against Wolves. If Arsenal can do us a favour at all, that would be brilliant.
Again, because they beat Wolves, which was a favour to us, because Wolves would have gone ahead of us as well before we played Watford. So, that'd be nice if they could do us another favour.
Love to see Arsenal fans sort of supporting us getting third. Would love for you guys to comment and subscribe as well. So Leicester have got an interesting run of games.
It's a tough run-in for Leicester, and that's probably the one thing that kind of makes me feel a little more relaxed if they don't turn up like they haven't so far.
And the other thing you've got clubs just turning over for United, which pisses me off more than anything. Just sort of.
But they do look incredible at the moment, United. It's hard. I said before, I can see them running through the rest of the games, winning out, and that doesn't look like it's easing up. I mean, their only tough game remaining is Leicester at the end of the season, the very last game. So I think we can't rely on. Yeah, I can't see us relying on United to slip up. So I think we have to rely on Leicester to slip up, because I can see us slipping up again. I mean, we still got Liverpool to play, who they'll probably want to beat us just because it's Liverpool. You know, they're not going to roll over for us. And then we have obviously got Wolves last game as well. So I could still see United finishing above us, which is concerning. I don't think they're going to drop many points between now and the end of the season.
Smugness of United fans.
Every time Bruno Fernandes touches the ball, the excitement they have is just ridiculous. He's been there for 2 minutes.
Don't get me wrong, he looks good, but as you say, he's been there 2 minutes. I think the likelihood is Leicester dropping positions and us maintaining, and it likely United sort of gaining on whatever that sits there. Mm-hmm. But sort of Leicester have got they haven't got an easy run of games. Sort of they've got Arsenal away, Bournemouth away, which potentially is where they could pick up points. But then you've got Sheffield United at home, who've had a mixed bag since they've come back. They've had some good wins and some absolute weird sort of losses. and then you've got Spurs and United, which are hard 2 games to finish the season on. So I'd love for us to go and finish atop against them, or a different use of words for beating them. But I think if we look at just the Crystal Palace game for what it is, Palace were poor. I think if you look at us, potentially we're going to be missing Kovacic and Kante for the game, which worries me because they are the 2 more defensively minding midfielders.
Especially Kante at the moment with the form he's been in. He's been incredible. And as I said before, he's quite pivotal in the fact that we can play Mount and Barkley together, the 2 kind of number 8s. So if he's not playing, I'd be a bit concerned about that.
I think you're going to have to either bring Jorginho into the mix, which is just an unknown quantity at the moment.
Yeah,
probably a Billy Gilmore, and he's, as you said, he's a youth player. You can't expect for him to come turn out every week, but he was looking positive before the end of lockdown.
Yeah, he's obviously taken a knock of confidence from that Leicester game. I mean, when he came on the other day, again, it was just a little bit. He was just a bit weak. He gave them 2 chances, probably their only 2 chances in the match, because he was just shoved off the ball. He wasn't strong enough, and you can't expect him to be big and tough and strong at that age. And he's quite a wee lad anyway. So I think it will take some time, and he'll get there. But it's just concerning to have to rely on him at the moment. He's a nice to have at the moment. It's nice to bring him on and give him some minutes here and there, but we can't rely on him to be that player that Kante's been for the last few games if we want to get top 4.
I think if Kante and Kovacic are out, my personal preference, and if we take Jorginho as an unknown entity here, I think it'd be Ruben, because I think he brings that power into the midfield, and potentially, whereas Gilmore might get pushed off the ball, you're not going to really push off Ruben. And I think you play him in a position that you're not playing him out on the wing, which he's just done. He's really struggled with because it's not his natural position. I think you play Barkley and Mount. I would love to say we put Jorginho into that mix, but I'm just worried there's a reason we've not started him as why you wouldn't do that, which means that we play a very different game to we've been playing, because Mount and Barkley just haven't got that freedom that they have when Kante's playing. Hopefully, we've got both those players back, but they are a doubt for the game. What are your worries for our defence? So we've talked around our struggles. Crystal Palace have got some quite sort of aggressive and physical strikers in Benteke.
Yeah. I mean, we've had that in the last 2 games. Antonio completely bullied Rudiger, and in some senses Christiansen as well. The change up where we brought Zuma in for the Watford game, completely different story. Zuma was just he just had him Deeney in his pocket the whole game. Now I don't know whether that's because Deeney's fitness isn't quite there compared to Antonio, or if it's just a case of Zuma is that tough and strong. He is a big, strong lad. So I think you need, especially when you've got a big centre forward playing, you need Zuma in there. And as I said earlier, I think that back 4 now has to be our back 4 going forwards.
That would fill me with a bit more confidence, especially with someone like Will Saha playing, because I think sort of with the 2 wing backs in James and Dave, I've got a bit more confidence that he can be kept quiet with those 2. Alonso would really worry me though, because if Alonso was playing, I think you would see them play Zaha down the right and just watch him be run ragged.
I think the key again is Kante, because you watched some of our games already. You look back to the Villa game, Grealish quiet most of the game because of Kante. Kevin De Bruyne quiet most of the game because of Kante. And I think it would be a similar story if Kante plays. He should be able to, because he's that good. He really is. And I know everyone is going on about Pulisic at the moment, but don't get it twisted. Kante is the best player at Chelsea by far, by a long way. And a lot of people talk about the fact he can't play as a single, a sole defensive midfielder. Yes, he can. We've seen it over the last few games. He's been absolutely brilliant. And he's not a Jorginho player. He's not the guy who plays as a playmaker. He breaks up the play from the other team. And when you've got someone like that, then you can have those two attacking midfielders. Going back to my point, he can keep Zaha quiet. If we have someone else playing there, it won't be so easy. It's pivotal whether Kante plays or not as to how we can handle Zaha.
What are your predictions for the game?
I do think we'll win just because Palace have been bad. I think, again, I find it difficult to predict us to have a clean sheet. Even though, we looked a lot better, I still don't think we were tested very much. I think Palace might have a bit more about them than Watford did. So I'm going to say the same as I did for the Watford game. I'm going to go 3-1 to Chelsea.
Are you just doing that because our sponsor's 3 and you're just keeping in?
Every game's got to have a 3 in it, mate. Unfortunately, the West Ham one was against us. So,
I'm going to go 2-1 Chelsea win, just because I think Crystal Palace have got a bit more to them than Watford had, in honesty. But yeah, I think that'll be a good game. And then we look forward to Sheffield United. They've had a mixture of games. They've had some, let's just talk around their meteoric rise, because they've had an absolutely outstanding season for a club to come up.
Yeah, to be honest, I think that's one of the reasons they've kind of dropped a bit after the lockdown, because no matter what happens now, their season has been unbelievable. They've just come up and they're fighting for Europe. Like, who would have ever predicted that? It's incredible. So I think big kudos to Chris Wilder and to all of their players, because they've been brilliant. And, when we looked at that result at the beginning of the season, when we played them at Stamford Bridge and it finished 2-2, we were all a little bit worried, thinking, oh, God, what kind of season is this going to be for Chelsea? But actually, I think it said a lot more about how good Sheffield United were. We just didn't know it yet. And that's why that result looked so bad at the beginning. But now you look back and think, actually, it was against a very good side who were playing very well. So, they've been really good.
And for me, I think imperative for this game is us being able to control the tempo, simply because Sheffield United come at teams. They don't come to sort of just draw, but they're coming at you to win, and they throw a lot into that, and therefore if we can control the tempo, we can tire them out.
I think the positive you can look at is since lockdown, their goal scoring has been quite off the pace. I think they've only actually scored against Spurs. I think the other games they haven't scored. Yeah. So they scored 3 against Spurs. Yeah, but that's the only game they've scored in. So maybe they've woken up now and it's going to change from now on. But the first few games they played, they didn't score a goal. So I mean, you could look at that as a positive, considering how bad our defence is or has been. Potentially, that could be a good thing for us.
I think what's interesting is their lack of depth of squad. That's going to be our, especially with the current game and being able to play five and five defenders. Because although I'd love that, we probably need it at the moment. But being able to play sort of those 5 substitutes, I think that's going to be key for us, because the as much as we complain, there is a depth of talent on our bench that we can call on. Yeah. And I think, for me, there's a real opportunity for us to win the game. But I'm not going to take away the threat they bring. Because the big thing for me is with Sheffield United, there's not one individual performance that you can always go, oh, he wins them the game every time. They've got just outstanding sort of individuals who play well as a team and perform as a team. You can't just go and close down one player, because they've just got a great ethos around that. So I think there's a real worry. But what are your thoughts on predictions for that game?
I think in this one, I think Pulisic is going to be very, very key. I think the way that Sheffield United play, they tend to have, instead of their fullbacks being very attacking, they kind of have their wide centre backs tend to drive forward quite a lot. And I think if you can get Pulisic on the ball when something like that happens and catch one of them out, then you're looking a bit stronger. You can break into that. And I don't think they're the kind of side that's going to sit back and defend the whole game against us. They'll also be putting some pressure on us. So I could see both teams scoring. I think it'll be a tight game, though. I think maybe I'm still obviously going to go for a Chelsea win. So I think I'll go for 2-1 in this one.
Yeah, I'm going to go same. I might just go to be different, 3-1.
Because you've gone 2-1 for all 3 games so far.
I think equally, I want to see a 3. I want to see the consistency of the 3, the 3 sign. On the topic of advertising, and sort of, you're wearing some nice wares there, Jamie.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, got a nice retro shirt on from. I believe this is from '84, something like that. But yeah, no, this beautiful shirt, along with many others, not just Chelsea shirts, but a mixture of teams. You can get hold of these at ScoreDraw. Check the link in our description down below, and go get yourself one. They're really nice. I think you got one, didn't you?
I have got one in the post. I've got a nice 68 one, very nice blue kit. So obviously, as always, thank you, lads and lasses, for joining us for a weekend of podcasting on ChelsChat. If you can remember to like and subscribe, comment below. Tell us how you're feeling. Comment around what you feel the game's going to be like. And look forward to seeing you guys again next week.
Thanks, guys.